Hey guys, it's Illusionist Jason Bishop. I'm back discussing another piece of magic. Now, at the time of this recording, it's just prior to Thanksgiving in the United States, and I want to have this video up for you on Friday, like I try to upload usually Friday at 12 o'clock. I release the videos, and there's a specific reason for that, and I picked a specific artist for this, actually. See, if you grew up in magic in the United States in the 1990s, like between mid-90s to late 90s, then Thanksgiving was a pretty special and important time for you because the night prior to Thanksgiving, they released the world's greatest magic specials each year for 5 years starting in 1994. And this was really important because it introduced magicians to other magicians that they had never seen before. And these weren't just any magicians, these were world-class performers. Some of them were already famous, some of them weren't yet famous and would become even more successful and more famous after that. You had people like Brett Daniels, Greg Frewin, Jason Byrne, David Williamson, Renee Levon, Jeff McBride, Galena, Mac King, Juliana Chen, Princess Tanko, Peter Marvey, and just a bunch of other amazing artists. And so every year you watch these artists that half of them you probably had never seen, or at least I hadn't seen, and they would do new, interesting, cutting-edge, extremely polished acts. You know, in the 90s, magic really was meant to be a little bit more polished, actually, whereas today you have this David Blaine aspect that makes it a lot more organic and seem natural, which is completely fine, but back then it was a bit more of a precise, polished kind of a routine that was maybe slick, you might say. I don't want to say that in a negative way, but, you know, polish isn't bad, frankly. It's just there's different phases and just different sort of fads within magic and the performing approach, and that's perfectly fine. It happens in music and acting and all types of art. And in magic in the 90s, it was slick and it was polished, and magic today is a little more organic and in your face, and certainly utilizes social media, which we didn't have back then. But this was a really important show, World's Greatest Magic. It introduced us to these great magicians, and one of the magicians that I got introduced to on the very first World's Greatest Magic blew my mind, inspired me, got me started down a particular road in magic doing manipulation and dove magic, and this person's name was Greg Frewin. Greg Frewin is from Canada. He won FISM in 1994. FISM is sort of an acronym, I guess. Is it an acronym? I guess it is an acronym. I had never really seen magic like Greg Frewin had done before in my life at all, frankly. I mean, I didn't know what to expect when he was waiting in the wings before the show with the host, and then he walked out on stage, and I just thought, it's some magician, I don't know. And the very first trick he did, I was like, I've never seen anything like that before in my life. What just happened? And I was hooked from that moment on. I mean, I probably wanted to stop the show then and rewind it and watch it again, but you had to watch the whole 2 hours straight through. I'm sure the second it was over, I went right back and watched him. I have watched Greg Frewin's act literally probably hundreds of times, I have to say, breaking it down, watching it in slow motion, watching it again, because there's a lot of layers to what he's doing. He's so polished. And Greg he's won the IBM competition, he's won the SAM competition, he's won FISM, and now he has a 20-year deal at his own theater in Niagara Falls, Canada. I actually saw the show there once years ago when he originally opened up, and it was a great show. Greg has expanded to really innovative cutting-edge illusions. He used big cats at the time. He has large birds now. Originally he did, utilize doves, and then he expanded to utilize larger parrots like cockatoos, things like that. So Greg blew up after FISM and was working in Las Vegas. He was working on cruise ships. He would hop off of a ship and then immediately be in a casino somewhere. He did over 35 television appearances around the world. I mean, just incredibly accomplished. I had the pleasure of meeting Greg Frewin a couple of different times. We would actually drive down to Atlantic City, which was about 3 hours each way. We had enough money for gas, but we didn't have enough money for tickets. And so we'd go to the box office and say, oh, we were magicians and we'd like to meet the artist, and then Greg or whomever would come out and you'd meet them. And a lot of times they would actually comp you, which was really nice, because they'd just say, do you have tickets for the show? And we'd be like, well, not really, because we don't have any money. We're college kids, And they would just give us a couple comp tickets if they could, and we'd watch the show. And once Greg even took us out to dinner afterwards, because he knew we were poor college kids who had no money, and he offered a ton of advice and encouragement at dinner and actually paid for our dinner, which was really nice of him. So if you're a college kid out there and you want to come to my show, I guess you have to hit me up or something like that and say, I'm a poor college kid, can I get 2 tickets? And I will hook you up, because I have to pay forward, whichever way you pay it. I don't know what it is, something about the drive-through at McDonald's and the people behind you. I don't know, but you got to pay it back. So I guess I owe some kid out there dinner because Greg Frewin paid for my dinner. A couple big magicians paid for my dinner. I'm very thankful to them. Greg Frewin's act back to me as a really inspirational piece of magic, because I never knew that you could do magic like this. I'd never seen magic like this, frankly. So it really opened up my imagination and my mind to what you were capable of doing on stage with magic. And a lot of guys like me, when we were kids, certainly were inspired by Greg Frewin to push what we were doing with magic and innovate magic on stage with objects and animals and birds and things like that. And certainly you never want to copy another magician, and I never did copy Greg Frewin, but I was absolutely inspired by the magic that he performed. So again, I'm a professional illusionist. I've been performing magic for well over 10 years. I've toured the country in theaters and colleges. I've also been on cruise ships. Magic has taken me to well over 50 countries. I've been on the Today Show, CBS Sunday Morning, and had 2 successful shows in New York City at the famed New Victory Theater on 42nd Street. And now, in between performing magic, traveling, working on new magic, practicing, I pull up videos like this online and I give you guys my honest feedback about them. This is not footage from World's Greatest Magic, but it is the act that he did on World's Greatest Magic. Now, because Greg is always innovating, some of the tricks are going to be different or utilize different techniques than they did all the way back in the mid-90s, but the gist is basically the same, the impact is the same, and the heart of the routine is the same. This was actually filmed in Paris, France on a TV show called Le Plus Grand Cabaret du Monde. So let's take a look at one of my inspirations in magic, Greg Frewin. Here we go. So he slingshots a ball out into the audience, and in midair the ball turns into a dove and flies back to him. Yeah, that instantly, I remember watching that going, what am I watching? What is this? That's unbelievable. I'd never seen anything quite like that. It was my first introduction to this type of super visual dove magic. So let's continue on. Something else that through watching this hundreds of times that you notice is his prop management also is dead on. He had that green rope, he flicks it, the other end of the rope comes up to his hand, he catches it. He knows exactly what these properties do. He knows exactly how to manage them and control them, so he's not fumbling around, he's not dropping things uncomfortably and stuff. He's completely precise. Again, his prop management, I think, is really, frankly, superb. He knows where he's going, what he wants to do with it, how to utilize it, and beyond that, how to make it look smooth, how to make it look professional and polished. Again, this is the difference between the sort of organic street magic today, where it's like, you want to see a magic trick, and then you just do a coin, bite it, then it's there. That's perfectly fine. That's a legitimate approach. This is a different thing. This was done at high-class hotels and in Paris and on television shows, and at the time, this is what was required to be completely polished. I mean, when you go see certain artists, singers, things like that, they're really quite polished, frankly. They're not just grungy, organic. They know what they're doing. If you rewatch this, or actually, I'll put the original link down in the description box below so you guys can check this out without me talking over it. But if you watch it again, you'll notice his prop management, like I said, how smooth it is, how intentional it is, and I think that's really important. And it's not something people think about right away, but it's definitely something that is useful for magicians to learn. And that's a great piece of magic as well, because he has the netting there that you can see through. It's got holes, and so you can't hide anything behind it, and he clumps it up, and then a bird pops out. And I think another interesting thing to note about Greg Frewin that really always captured my interest from jump with him is that he makes material selections that are different than other magicians. So he takes the handkerchief, puts it into a glass, and then he burns the glass, turns it upside down, and the handkerchief falls out, and now it's this netting material. That's to sort of simulate that now it has holes in it that they were burnt in. Let's just imagine that. Or that it's materially transformed into a different material. That aside, the point is that now he has a netting material. We can see right through that material, and we've seen plenty of magicians take a handkerchief, crumple it up, and a bird pops out. But the handkerchief is basically opaque. You can't really see through it. When you have a netting material like this, you can see through greater than 50% of it, roughly 75 or even 90% of the material. You can see right through. There's holes. And Greg sticks his fingers through those holes. He moves it so that we can see it move and flow, and we can see his jacket through there, that this isn't a fake material. Then he crumples it up, and then the bird still appears. And so he's taken this to another level, and he's made it more interesting for the viewer. If you watch a lot of magic, as some of these audiences do, even lay audiences sometimes will watch quite a bit of magic, this is interesting now for them because they've never seen that done before. They know maybe where it's going, where it's going to end up. When the bird appears, that seems familiar to them, but the process to get there is now different, and that's interesting. And that can certainly make your act a little more marketable. And frankly, after Greg Frewin won FISM and then was on this television show, his career blew up. He was all over the place. He ended up on over 35 TV shows. Like I said, he was in Vegas, he was in Atlantic City, he was in Europe, he was in, all over the world, frankly. He was doing cruise ships. He ended up with his own theater in Niagara Falls. Let's go back. Here we go. He's got a bird in his hand. Let's see what happens with the bird. To make that bird appear like that, I understand the techniques that he's utilizing. I've utilized these techniques as well. And he's so clean. He's so precise with what he's doing, and that's a big part of doing this, frankly. There has to be a level of precision, and Greg Frewin is so precise on that stuff. Greg's obviously known as an innovator in magic. One thing that I don't think he gets maybe enough credit for is how clear he communicates to the audience. If you look at the way he presents objects to the audience, he's not doing anything confusing. He's not hiding things. He's being very clear about what he has, and that he's playing with the things. He's setting up patterns sometimes, like he just did with that sort of telephone cord. He's setting up these patterns that our mind kind of flows with as such, but he communicates very, very clearly. He's not obscuring things or hiding with them or anything like that, and I think that's really interesting. And when you're doing visual magic like he's doing, if you're communicating clearly and showing the objects clearly and then it happens, I think it's a little more impressive, frankly. He's not, like I said, obscuring anything or hiding anything. So I think that's really something that pops out at me now when I watch him all these years later, frankly. So let's continue. a great act, and then he carries that little box of birds forward, places it down, lifts it up, and then his assistant has appeared there in the end. That's actually his wife. I believe her name is Alana. That blew my mind. That was it. I mean, to me, boom, right at that moment in my teens, Greg Frewin became the greatest magician in the world to me. And, you know, I would fight anybody about that. Now, obviously, that's very subjective as to who's the greatest magician in the world. It's a dumb argument. It's just a subjective thing as to who you like better. But throughout my teens, Greg Frewin was the man. It was like Greg Frewin, Lance Burton, David Copperfield. That was kind of the big three for me. There were a couple other people that I really respected. But as far as like just in my bones, just having such a deep respect, he was absolutely one of those people. And that last piece of magic, I had never seen anybody do that before, and in subsequent years it became a little more popular, although there were different techniques that were utilized, and I'm not so sure that those didn't evolve because of his act, frankly. I don't know if they really existed before. That's a little murky for me. I'm not certain as to the history of that, but I'd never seen it before, and I know I saw it a lot after he did it. I'm sure some magicians know the origin of that and the lineage of it, etc., but it looked to me like something that Greg Frewin had, frankly, innovated, and I knew it blew a lot of magicians away. It blew me away, that's for sure, and it took me a long time to really understand what was going on with that piece of magic. I mean, I had a lot of wild theories of how this was happening and that, and anyway, it's very interesting. You guys know that I don't talk about techniques on here and how things are done, but yeah, so Greg Frewin's act, I mean, the guy's had such success, you know, and he's inspired such a generation of stage magicians who did dove magic, that's for certain. And so I hope you guys, if you've never seen him perform before, that you enjoyed that and inspires you to do innovative stage magic as well. I'm glad I got to share this with you right around Thanksgiving because it was such a important time for magicians in the mid to late 90s, and I'm glad it was Greg Frewin that I got to share with you first because he was such an inspirational magician to me, frankly. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving. I hope you have a good holiday season coming up as well. Remember, if you need some new magic or you want to learn magic, there's a link below to Vanishing Ink. This is an affiliate link, so if you buy anything, it does help us out, and I appreciate that. If you enjoyed this video, please destroy the like button. If you'd like to see more, then hit subscribe, and if you'd like to get notified, then hit the bell to get notified. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you in the next one.